Okay, if you're watching this video, it's because you are interested in trying out this invoice templating system. And I have to say, it's actually pretty cool. This has been in the works for a while, and I think I'm finally comfortable with letting it, putting it out there. Okay, so you see right away that I put a little annotation up there that this is an experimental feature, which it is because well, it will work fine, if you just leave it on the standard settings. This is a QuickBooks Online implementation, and if you just use the standard invoice generated by QuickBooks, of course, everything will work just fine like it was before. Nothing would really change. So if you have any problems or you mess things up, you can always just make this one active again. On desktop, the thing to keep in mind is if you already have a legacy custom template, that will be the current active template, since that's the one that you had us create some time ago. But you could add a new template, and then that will pull in the default, kind of the stock template that you could then make some changes to. So same thing, if you kind of mess things up, you can do one of two things. You can just re-enable your legacy template. Now the legacy templates are not changeable because they're actually hard-coded. Or if you don't have a legacy template and you've created a custom template and something goes wrong, you can just add new, don't change anything on it, just call it, just name it default or something like that, and then make that your default. Just click that on, and then it will just go back to the standard template. So if you have trouble with that, I mean, if just the basic standard template, especially if you're on QuickBooks Desktop, doesn't work, then yeah, go ahead and let us know. I mean, it's been tested fairly well. I mean, it seems to render things fine as long as you don't make any edits to it. So, but if you make a bunch of changes to it or you do anything, especially within the body section, which I'll show you in a minute, that part, since again this is a experimental implementation, so it's kind of beta. All right. So, but like I said, that should render the stock template, and that one, if that's broken, yeah, obviously, definitely say something or open a support ticket. Okay. So, what can you do, and how does this work? Well, it's not exactly that super user friendly as far as like an end user, because it does kind of depend on you knowing some HTML in order to make changes to this. Excuse me. So let me just show you kind of how it works. So let's go, same thing, you can't edit the QuickBooks Online template because that just comes straight from them. But the one thing that's cool, when I first created this, I didn't have a way to override the QuickBooks Online template. It basically was pulling in, for desktop version, it was pulling in the QuickBooks XML for an invoice, converting it, deserializing it into an actual invoice object, and then we use the templating engine to break that all down and render out some HTML that then gets parsed into the PDF. But then I thought, well, why can't you do it with QuickBooks Online? I mean, we can basically get an invoice object there too. Now there is a little bit of a complexity to the QBO, the QB Online system, because when you pull an invoice object, they don't render everything inside the object. Like it basically pulls in a shell that has some basic metadata, and then you're supposed to go out and get the different pieces. And so it doesn't make for a super easy thing to implement. That's why this kind of took a while to do. So the way that we do those is we do just pull the invoice first, and then we decorate it with all of the sub and child data, all the rows. We basically throw those all in there. We can do it faster because we pull it from our own synchronized metadata, so we can get it kind of quick. It should render almost just as fast, really. So anyway, let's just do a quick demo of all this, how it works, and then I'll let you guys can kind of play with this. So in this case, I'm on a QuickBooks Online implementation here. I have this. This is what you will see right now. Most of you would just have this one line that's not changeable, and this is the one you can revert back to if you mess things up. If you click Add New, you're going to pull in a copy of the kind of the default template that everybody would get when they create a new one. All right, so it's just kind of an empty shell, but it has all of the meat of it's all there. All right, so let me just show you what I mean. You have a few sections here. You have a header, a body, and a footer, and you have a section here for your style sheet. Again, if you don't know what these mean, don't worry about it, except for the fact that you won't be able to do this yourself probably. But if you know somebody who's a web person or knows some HTML, they probably will be able to go in here and figure out what to do. If you're making really simple changes, you might be able to do it yourself. So for example, I'm looking at the preview here and I can see this placeholder for header full. All that does in the QB Online world is that just pulls in your company name and address. But that doesn't look so good. It's just very plain. So you might want to go in here and make it look nicer. Maybe put, I'm not going to use an H1 because it'll put a lot of space. But let's say we just do a span style. Again, I'm just doing this because I want the company name to be bold. And actually, I could even just do that. You know what? I can just do that with a strong tag. It's easier. If you really want to get more into this, you can use the CSS. But let's just say, ABC company. Now you see that is rendering out bold. Now I want to do a line feed, so the BR, right? And then I'm going to put, 1, 2, 3, Elm straight. Again, put my and anywhere. Alright, so that's very simple, and maybe in some cases you might want to have a phone number here, but you don't have to, but you could put something like that. Alright, so I've got that. Now I can also do something more creative here by modifying this table structure and having the logo here, and it doesn't allow you here to upload the logo, so you would have to have the logo on your own, somewhere on a share, somewhere on your web server. I'll probably be adding something here, a facility where you can just upload it and then use that image. But the idea here really is to make this a lot more flexible. So I was just thinking for now, I'm just going to let people put in pull the image from wherever they want, rather than storing it on our shares at this point. So doing that sets up my header. Again, you have access to really all the fields in the invoice object. So, but let me save that a second for a little bit of a later discussion. Because this base template kind of shows you how it works. You can see how we get each piece of the information, right? It even can support different date formats for different locales. You can do that. If I go to footer, all I've got here is if there's a customer memo that exists, then go ahead and render it out. I'm using a little bit of styling here. And then the body is the more complex part. For the most part, you don't really maybe need to change too much in here unless you need it to render different the columns, excuse me. So, and maybe I would say 90% of the case, in 90% of the cases, you can just probably leave it the way it is. Unless, again, you just need to change some styling. All right, most people are going to probably be changing the header, and I should point out the fact that the header and the footer are fixed. Even though this is HTML, the header, the way that the templating or the PDF render works, is whatever's in this header section, it will always be a fixed header on each page. And the same thing goes for whatever you put here in the footer. It's going to render on every page at the bottom. And so however big you make the footer and the header, however tall it is, it's going to consume that on every page, and then whatever is left over is where the body is going to fit inside there. One other tip I will say, and I just learned this kind of from playing around with these tools, is even though it can parse HTML, You'll notice I use mostly table tags, and I have some div wrappers like here, just to kind of, maybe I want to put a border around something, or I just want to have it inherit some style sheets. But even on the header, you'll notice I use like a table, and I separate, say, the left and the right side with a width of 50%, like this. And you might be wondering, why do you do that? Why don't you just use divs with some floats? And the reason why is that doesn't work too well with the PDF render. So it's using, I'll be releasing some documentation for this very soon, which will have links to all this, but this is using MPDF, and MPDF basically can take HTML and then convert it and render it into a PDF. Something I have not implemented in this particular iteration is that all of this really can also be rendered as HTML, and it will work just fine. But for now, right now in the portal, I'm always rendering the invoices as a PDF. But I think the idea will be, just because it's more, it's just way faster, is to render them like when it pops up the invoice, is just rendered as an HTML. And then, of course, have a button that says download as PDF. So in other words, your permanent copy or your downloadable copy, or what you might print, is going to be a PDF. But just for quickly pulling things up, because you don't have to wait for that PDF to generate, would just be this HTML version, which should look really exactly the same, or very, very close to it. All right. So what else? I did, again, look at the example when it comes to, if you're concerned about the currency symbol. It's not like other ones where we just do it automatically, or it inherits what you're using in the portal, because just the way the templating engine works, you can't do that. So you can put the currency symbol in here. Actually, it could do it. I'll just be honest, I could not get this formatter to do it the way I wanted. So I was just thinking, all right, I'll just format it like this using this. Again, I'll show you you'll have to look at the documentation for that. It's called Scriban, S-C-R-I-B-A-N. I might even be pronouncing it wrong, so I apologize. It's a .NET implementation of that template engine, all right? So I'll make sure I said that correctly. And if you know about templating, you'll be comfortable with the fact with these curly braces, which is what like Handlebars uses. It's pretty common way that you use templates, when you merge data with a document and create an output. So all of this that you're looking at ultimately outputs as just plain HTML. It will just render HTML without anything else. So if you were to render this on a web page, it will just look like this, but of course all the data would be filled in. And that's what basically does the magic. That's what allows us to do something custom like this and generate a PDF, but have total control over the layout and not have to do any programming. It's really great. It's a pretty cool kind of breakthrough. The tools for this just really didn't exist before. It was very hard to do. So now anybody who knows HTML, CSS, maybe a little bit about templating, because there's some language structure here. You'll see that in the body section there's some for iterations, some when. These are ways to repeat items and do it in a organized, in the proper way. So let's go ahead and save this. Let's just try this out. Let's save this. I'll just put a test, and I'll call this one test template 1. We'll set it as the currently active. Again, this is on QuickBooks Online, so this is going to be pretty cool. This means I can override that template that QuickBooks Online provides us. I don't know anybody else is doing this. I've never seen anyone do it unless they were generating the invoice on their side and just syncing it over to QuickBooks Online. But I haven't seen anybody taking QuickBooks Online invoices and in real time converting it to their own template and then render it out. All right, it's really translating it, pulling it into an object, decorating it with all the data, and then rendering it based on your own template. So here it is. It's set as active. It's a test created a couple seconds ago. So let's just pull up a customer and let's try it out. So we've got this template. Now this one has some grouping, so I want to prove that does work. If you've got grouped items, for example. And let's hope this works. This doesn't look like a terrible video. All right, there we go. So the only thing that I changed off of the default template was obviously this piece right here. I wanted to put make the header look the way I want. To be 100% forthright, this is actually the way it would render anyways, except for the phone number, if you do it with the stock template. So, but I'm going to show you in just a moment, like how you can really override that. So you'll see that groups do render out. You have your group header line, and then a quantity, and then I get my sub items, and then a total for that group. So it renders out the groups pretty well. Actually, I think it does it better than what Intuit does, but you can emulate what they do as well if you customize it. All right, so let's go back. And I made some other ones here, and it's good that I did that because I do want to just quickly show you what more you could do. So, for example, if I want my logo in there, how would I do that? So I've got one here that I was playing with before. You see it has the logo, and it's even got this little disclaimer, like where to send a payment. So what I'm going to do is, here's that TD with a width of 50%. That's this half. And then here's the TD. Here's the other half where I'm showing the invoice header. See, all that's right here. So what I want really is I want to grab this table. It's just a table, and it's got some rows that basically create this piece. So I'm going to copy that. All I did is just do a Control-C and copied it. Let's go back. Let's pull up the one I just created. All right, let's really do this so you can see in real time. And this, you're going to see the one I just created a minute ago here. So there it is. So there's our little piece we threw in. So there's my table, the same table right here. It's in that TD cell that's 50% width. So I'm just going to remove this, or I'm going to basically, let's just delete that and paste in the other one. Now, there it is. So it's getting the logo from an S3 share that's readable from publicly, and then I create another cell beside it, and I just put my my address information. Let's say that's just wrong, or I don't need that, or I want to just change this 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe we always put the country down here, okay? And maybe, I don't know, let's say we don't need this, so we'll just remove that line, okay? So there, now we have that, and maybe I want to space that down just a little bit, so I could go into, put it there, yeah, that's what I want. So let's make it even more, let's do 20 pixels, so that's moved down quite a bit. Maybe it looks a little better, right? It's a little bit more in alignment with this stuff. So I like that. I've still got it set as the active, so I'm going to save it. And after I save it, I'm going to go back here just to verify that it is still active. It is. And once again, I will pull up ABC Company. Let's render that same invoice out. Let's see how it looks. One thing that I have heard in reading about this particular PDF render is there has been some complaints about it being a little bit slow. And that's because, I'm assuming it's because of the way it works. It has to do a bit of rendering. And so that's why I do like the idea of that by default in this pop-up right here, that we would just render this as an HTML version of this, which will come up very quick, like almost instantly. And then there's just a button up here or somewhere that says, open as a PDF or download as a PDF, something like that. That way, because it really will, look just exactly like this. I'd love to show you a demo of that, but I just don't have it ready here for this particular video. Okay, so that's it. That works. And if I mess it up, no problem. I just go back to the standard one here. Turn my standard one back on. If I mess things up or I broke it, it's not even rendering anything, and I can pull it up. And now it's going to go fetch the PDF from the QuickBooks Online API and just give me the PDF that they do natively. There you go. See, this is coming right out of QB Online. Alright, so that is the QB Online version of this. Alright, this one here, this is, I just switched to a different tab, is using QuickBooks Desktop. And if you are someone who has a custom template that we created some time ago, you're going to have this line item right here, this legacy custom template, and it's going to be active. And maybe that's fine. Maybe you just want to leave it that way. That's the one you want to use. But if you decide that you want to try this out, which I did here, like I created some customized ones, you're going to just click Add New Template, and you're going to get this a base template as a default. I just went back over to the QB Online one, and in this template that we just created, I'm going to just go copy that one more time. This table from the header, the one that has my logo on it, just to show you how interchangeable this all is. Alright, so we've got this one, our legacy one, that is coded with a totally different platform. It's not changeable, you can't edit, but you can still make it active. And we're going to add a new template. And like I just mentioned a minute ago, when you click Add New Template, you're going to get a copy of the stock standard template that works. Okay, so here's our standard template. Now you'll see in this case, we do get and render based on invoice fields. We can get the company header, but you can very easily just go in here and override this. And I kind of would encourage you to do that. There's no need to just pull this in from the database or anything like that. Just go in here like I just did before. Go to the table and replace it with something that you like. And maybe I want to put that same padding up on the top. I'll make it 20 pixels, so I bumped it down a little bit. But let's just say that we're not going to change anything else. Alright? Or maybe in the footer, instead of using this kind of code, we always want to render out something. So what we'll do is we'll just type something there. Hello there. Alright, and if you look at the template now, it's right there. Renders inside of a box, but again, you don't have to do that. You could go in here and remove the border. I think this one, yeah. We'll leave it in there. On the body, everything is going to stay standard. Alright, so we're going to call this GTMA Desktop template. I don't know if I've already numbered them, so let's just say 15 just to be safe. And this is a test, and we'll set it as active, so it will become active immediately, and save it. And then I'm also going to do one other thing here to kind of show you how what I found to be the best way to do some testing and troubleshooting as you're building a template. Okay, there we go. Alright, so there's our new one, right? That's our legacy. Here's the active one. GTMA Desktop Template 15, it's active. It's probably going to already just render right now. Let's just pull it up. And instead of it rendering my legacy template, it's going to render the one I just now created. Okay, good deal. So that did what I thought it would do. And it rendered my standard stock footer, which again, you can put whatever you want there. So nice. And it looks, it looks relatively good. It's simple and I like it. Alright, so let's close that. Now what I do, if you're going to be tweaking a particular template and you want to keep looking at it, I would go into the edit template screen. And then what I would do, so I can keep on loading it again, and once, wait for this thing to fully load, once it loads up, go to the search box here, type a name of a customer that you want to play with, that you're going to use, that you've got a template you want to play around with. And I would just right click on here and then say open in a new tab. Okay, so there we go. Now I'm just going to go back over to my other tab here, close this up now. And now I'm going to go in here and make some changes. So what I was mentioning before, I think, was sometimes on the template preview here, it's not, you can't see what it's going to look like so good. It's some of this is a lot of curly brackets that are placeholders for values, and they don't look too good in preview mode. And so I probably want to see this rendered out as I'm playing around with this. So let's say, like, I don't know, what's something I can do. Maybe I like that invoice header to be all caps. So maybe I've had that before in my other templates, so I want it. Okay, and then maybe on my terms, I want those to be text align left. Alright, so maybe I just want them to look like that. I don't want them centered in this particular context. Just again, I'm just kind of showing you that how it works, but I'll remove that class there. And this one. So now these are going to align the way I want. So if I just hit save, it saves. So now I'm going to go to my other tab here and just refresh it. And in doing that, I get to see how it looks, when it's changed. So there's I changed this to caps. My alignment looks good on my terms and the due date. All right, cool. So I like the way that looks. Maybe I'm thinking like, I don't want that service description to be centered. That really should be, I'd prefer that to be left aligned. So I'm going to go to the body, and here's that one. I'm going to say, same thing, text align left. And it did it. Alright, so, and then this one, the quantity, that can stay right since it's a number. I'm going to leave that. I'm going to save it. Saved. Again, refresh our invoice in the other tab. And then we should have, there we go. Okay, so we have it. It's left justified. These are left justified. Again, it's totally your preference, however you want to make that look. It's up to you. Alright, so that's, again, very simple updates there. If you have other pieces of data you want to put in here, I mean, you can do it. Again, I think you kind of should know what you're doing if you're going to do that. But maybe I'll try to demo that really quick if I can do this without making it look terrible or breaking it. So let's say next to the bill to, and I'm not using a table for this, just a div, so I don't know how well this is going to work. So we will try it. Let's say we put another div here. This might be a good way to show you also why to use tables. So I've got some text here, and I see it's not in the right place. I want it to the right. So I'm going to put over here, and then I'm going to say float left. All right, so now we'll do that. But I also have to make sure that down here I do again, these are things that you would just kind of know if you know something about HTML and CSS. I'm going to say, is it clear? I think clear both. Yeah, okay, because that gives me back my spacing. All right, if I don't put this in, watch what happens. You lose it. All right, so we want to make sure that it obeys our padding. This should also have float left. There we go. Okay, so that's better. It lines up where I want. And I could do something like test, and maybe I want, because it's a label, maybe I will make that one bold. And then I'm going to put my, and then I'm going to put my value here. Now, I don't know what value I want to put. I'm just going to put any value, so I'm going to just grab something like, let's just grab these terms, even though it would be silly to repeat it, but let's just say that it's because you wanted to move the terms to a different location. In fact, let's actually put on here terms, like that. And then let's put the placeholder there, so it'll look like that. And then to fix everything else, let's just remove, is there a good, easy way to do that? Let's try this. I don't want to mess this up and make it look bad, but okay, that worked. It's huge, but that's okay. Okay, we can fix that. Due date, that's big enough. All right, so what I did is I said, all right, I'm going to just put my due date here. I could really just put it over here too, right? Wouldn't that look fine as well? but I have to do a little bit of alignment stuff there. So I'm going to save this template, and after this is saved, I'm going to now refresh here. So you can come up, and there we go. Okay, so now we only show our due date here. We remove those other cells, and now our terms are going to render up here, due on receipt. So you see what I mean? If you know these placeholders, such as the terms, so terms ref full name. Now I'm going to be, again, like I said, I'm going to release or document some of this. I will show you where to find this information, where it comes from, because I think in the templates, in the standard template, there's probably some things in there that are not rendered out, but you could put them there. So, you know, if it was me and I was doing this, I probably would move the due date over here as well. I mean, terms should due date should usually be rendered next to terms since they're related. And then that also frees up all this space, right, to have my body not take up so much space. Let's just do it really fast, right? I don't want to, let's really prove that how well that can work. So I'm going to add a line feed there. I'm going to add another line. I'm going to put due date. Again, this isn't lining up perfect. If I was going to do this properly, I would do some alignment so that it looks better. But for this, the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to be throwing these values in, just so you can see how easy it is to make some changes to your layout. Alright. Now I just noticed if I didn't keep that BR, why did it you know what, that's going to render just fine. The problem is that it's so wide that it's not fitting right here. Like, in fact, if I make my screen, no, it doesn't, still not enough. But just to prove it, like if I remove this for just a second, yeah, it goes back. So no worries. Again, it's one of those things where it's not too easy to look at this and then easily see what it's going to look like on the actual rendered PDF or HTML, because some of these strings are just too long. But you have to do it that way. They have to be, it has to come out, and it has to be done just like that. There's no choice. Otherwise, you'll lose all the flexibility of being able to render whatever you want in these spaces. Okay, so that was, so now we're going to take out this entire div, this entire thing. Now this is a margin, a top margin of 10. Let's see. So that entire div gone. And then we are going to, on this one, let's put a margin bottom of 10. Just the idea there is to put a little space between the build to and the body. All right. Once again, let's save this, and let's go out here and refresh so we can render it. And what we will now expect to see is an even more simple layout, which is we're just taking, instead of putting a whole other box here that takes up quite a bit of space, we're going to just put these things up here because we don't use a ship to field. You know, maybe it's a service oriented business only. You don't need a ship to field. And we're going to just put it up here, or even lay it out somewhere up here, whatever you want to do. And then that really leaves a lot more space to render out your line items and your subtotal sections. Alright, so that's it. Okay, I think I've done enough. I mean, I've showed how you can make some fairly minor adjustments here to fiddle around with your layout, how easy it is to get a logo up here. You can even render it on top, do whatever, however you want, and it will be fine. So I think I will conclude this walkthrough. Again, just keep in mind it is experimental, it's brand new, and that if you do run into some major issues, just revert back to your stock template if you've got a legacy template that we built, or just add a new template. You know, just pull up a new default one and save it, make it active, and then you'll hopefully it should render fine. If not, that's the only case where I would say, yeah, go ahead and really submit something, because if the default template doesn't render, then yeah, big problem. Okay, so that's it for now. Feel free to leave comments on this and pass along any suggestions. I do plan to expand on this a bit. In fact, I'm even thinking to make the email templates kind of work in a similar way, to give you a little bit more control over how they render and what they render. Just have more options available to do that, and then also being able to bind templates to things like a specific customer, or maybe even a customer type, so that way if you have 2 lines of business or 2 types of business that you do that really use it, because you do that in say QB Desktop, you can do that. You can have various templates for the different kinds of services that you offer. That would be a pretty cool feature, is to be able to bind a template, a custom template that renders a way that's more in line with that particular line of service that you're offering. So look for that. Again, that will be coming up. Not that hard to do, to bind it, but it just needs to be, we do a little bit of tweaking on our back end for that, and then it should work. Thanks for watching. Until next time.